you know when it comes up.
Awesome.
Oh, there we go. It's starting. Matter of fact, it's probably already live. It is.
Right. So, title. What's the title for today? Is it like Thanksgiving? What's to be
The
grateful
title for
for?
today is I got a nice big old turkey for everybody. It says Happy Turkey Day. Okay, yep. Yeah, you see in the background change, didn't you? Yeah. And Thanks for Nothing Day for TFLers. Okay, for people in the world, it really should be called Thanks for Nothing because
Hmm.
the day that's coming up, we celebrate killing and stealing other people's land. That's right. And wow, we got to be thankful that we stole this land. We got to be thankful that we killed innocent people. But we won't even go into that for TFLers today. Today is one of these days where people get together, and if you got a family, oh yeah, they're going to go out and get all the fixings and they're going to come up and they're going to get together and have friends together and, the husband and wife and everybody's getting together. But there's many people that are TFL that, well, the only thing they got for Thanksgiving Day is nothing. They have nobody with them. They have no friends. They're by themselves all day long. Yep. Or they have to go some freaking somewhere else to have a meal because they already got them. I mean, I guess if you're TFL living by yourself, you could buy yourself a little Cornish hen. If you had a way of cooking it, you could call that your turkey, right?
Right. You know, yeah, I was actually I have like a text here on my phone from a friend because I was like writing to him basically. Nobody's giving me shit, so I owe nobody nothing. He was like, "Oh, I should be more grateful," and I'm like, "Oh, well, nobody's giving me shit, so I'm not going to be grateful because nobody's giving me shit." You know what I mean? I'll read you.
Yeah.
He had a real positive approach to it. It's like one of my church going friends, so he's quite positive about things. I'll read you what he said as a counter argument, just to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, I was just talking about fucking how I was starting that job and stuff, and working all the time. And I'm like, oh, working. It's not. Well, I do like it, but at the time, I guess I was just in a mood where I was like, oh fuck, I just prefer sitting on the welfare or whatever and getting the unemployment and working. But he was saying to me, he doesn't know, right? This is what he says. I don't know if work is meant to be easy, but that doesn't mean it can't be good or enjoyable. Like climbing a mountain isn't easy, but the process is good and can be better when climbing with someone, and working for others isn't bad. I mean, any education you've received or any food you've eaten or item you've bought is the product of someone working for you, especially if it's free, like a meal cooked by your mum, etc. Working for others is better when it's done out of love, and I think you've probably had more free things than you realize, and the same goes for me. Work can be such a beautiful thing when it's good work and it's done for good reason. It's like designing a bridge to make life easier for people, or building a house for people to live in, raising a family, teaching so the next generation can be educated, or even making a coffee at a shop so someone can enjoy it. Sure, it's not always going to be easy, but that doesn't mean it isn't good. That's what he basically said whenever I said, I think I says to him, uh, basically I said before that, yeah, I don't owe anybody anything, because nobody's given me something. So I don't do much for anybody but myself, is basically what I said before that.
Well,
But that was his
actually, that
response.
that's the right answer because you don't owe nobody nothing. Because you was born with a penis between your legs doesn't mean you owe a woman her living and her everything. No, you're not her provider. Okay, no. I don't care what gender roles say in society tells you. They tell you nonsense. You don't owe her nothing. Okay, that's what they tell you. That you owe, that you know you are her provider and protector. No, I call that nonsense in today's society. Complete nonsense. There's many women out earning the men.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that one. Like they're the new providers.
Yeah, you see this all around you if you open your eyes and pay attention. But I also want to get into something else today
Hmm.
for for our upcoming Thanks for Nothing Day. Okay, I want to
Yeah.
talk about people's perceptions and wording. Okay, We can go down the list of all the wordings we have for the dating arena, okay? You know, from white
Hmm.
knight. I was even told that I was a black knight if I stuck up for men because words are nothing but man created, just like labeling. Calling somebody a nerd, a loser, a geek, okay?
Yeah.
These are all labeling techniques used to shame what we, we create these words and we put ourselves in categories and we
Right. Yeah.
inflate our own selves above other people.
Hmm.
But I guess one of my pet peeves is I think this has been happening a lot. And I don't think anybody's really catching on to it. And that's the fact that maybe my guest here comes up and says a word that he has in his mind, this word has many different meanings. You say, no, words don't have different meanings. Yes, many words do have different meanings, and depending on the culture you grow up in, it could have a
Hmm.
different meaning over where he's at than it does in the US. But the point of the
Right.
matter is this, they say something like Chads, or they say
Yeah.
something like, any kind of word, in the dating scene, doesn't matter what it is. And so they'll say something like Warren used Chad. He says he used words loosely. In other words, he's not specific, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's many words that can be used in the dating scene, and sometimes, and in fact, most of the time, I'd have to say we get these words from other people. We like to
Hmm.
manipulate and turn things and add things. I mean, come on, incel's never been TFL, and TFL is not an incel, but we know a whole bunch of people out here that love to say they're one and the same, right? Well, there's no truth to that.
Right. Yeah.
But the point is it's leading to misunderstandings and assumptions.
You're right, because everybody will, relate to a certain word in a different way based upon their own life experience. Like for instance, say you have like a lamp in your house, just to make an example, that lamp to you is going to be a lot more important than that lamp to me, especially if you've had it for 20 years and it's your favorite lamp. To me, it's just a fucking lamp. But to you, it could be your favorite lamp. And whenever you're talking about this lamp and you're maybe hyping it up, or your car, you're really excited about it. I might have no interest in that shit. And I won't be able to really understand what you're talking about at all, really, when it comes to that. I won't get why you like it so much. I'll maybe understand it in some ways. I'll be able to relate to things I like in that type of sense. But the human mind is very good at creating a lot of arbitrary relationships subconsciously based on things we see with that object or with that word, with that label in our personal type of lives. Like, you were talking about the other day, you watched a show in which they were calling, men dangerous or something. And obviously that's going to connect, the word dangerous, that's going to connect the men to things like road accidents, which are dangerous, serial killers, which are dangerous. It's going to
Yes.
subconsciously connect that word to danger, which has a lot of other, negative meanings,
Which
as I'm
it which
sure,
it does, in that show. What I've been talking to you about was the fact that the show literally started out in a courtroom, and the judge literally started out talking about the poor female victim and that men are dangerous. I mean, he literally said men are dangerous. Okay, and then they
Uh-huh.
cut that scene off and they went on to the burr, and then the movie started. And I was like, so the very first thing you heard before you ever watched the movie was from some actor dressed like a judge in a George court and in a courtroom background telling the ladies that men are dangerous.
Hmm.
Okay. So there's messaging right there that people won't even think about that'll stick at the back of their subconscious. Okay, but see, wording and labeling, I don't care. We got so many different words used in the manosphere. You know, from back in the Leave It to Beaver days when people had morals and people actually sort of knew what the hell they were doing. They took their time to meet somebody. Yeah, dating was to meet one another. And if we had things in common where we could possibly become friends, then we set up, we had another date and another date. And we became friends. And if we saw that we had too many things uncommon Even though we become
Yeah.
friends, we may just stay friends and we will go looking for somebody else and have another date and we'll still be friends with that person. But this is what it's supposed to be, but that's not what's promoted in today's society whatsoever, as everybody knows. But what
Well, yeah,
is okay, go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, you cut out there. Well, are you okay if I go ahead then? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we right. Basically, get back to the labeling thing. That type of issue. To somebody might be their best friend, and then to a stranger, that's just the same as any other person. So in one person's mind, you have this label or best friend attached to that person, or lover, but then to another person, it's like stranger. So it's the same object, or same person, but it's actually a different label and completely different understanding, based on two people's perspectives. So that's why people can't see eye to eye sometimes because they don't know what the other person has gone through or
I
how
think
they
a
relates
lot
to
of
that.
it comes down to people don't take the time to ask the simple question. The way to
Mhm.
avoid some of this is going to be simply backing off and thinking. You hear Warren yell the word Chad all the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when Steve come on the show the other day aggressively at Warren or aggressively at me, both
Mm.
incidences when he came at me at the start, okay, agreeing with SBO that I didn't really totally agree. And even when Steve was through coming at me, I did not agree with Steve all the way. It wasn't possible for me to but the problem is Steve came in on a word that I said with an assumption. He didn't
Right. Yeah.
ask me actually what I meant by what I was saying. Okay, with Warren, Warren says Chad. Steve attacks him over the word Chad. Well, not so much attack, but he was aggressive. Okay, Warren got aggressive because he got offended because of the word Chad because Warren says, "Well, I don't mean it that way. I'm speaking
Mhm.
about it loosely." Okay, so the problem there was simple. It was actually a miscommunication between the two of them that riled the
Right.
two of them up. And why did that happen? Well, because nobody asked the other person what do they mean by that word. What is their different definition of that word?
Yeah. Definitely. Social engineering could play a part in that because we encourage people to make judgments and be very quick to judge. Like as you see it in the media all the time, you get
Yes.
people calling each other losers right whenever they haven't even met the person based on one little fact, like a snowflake, one little opinion, one little matter of disagreement. I don't like that person. That's how people are socially engineered these days. Is
So it is,
you
and
know
unfortunately, it is the breakdown of communication. And it's affecting everybody because it is through social engineering. And the further you break the communication down, the further apart the people drift. And sadly, we make each other mad, not even meaning to make somebody mad. We have no intentions of making somebody mad. But well, you don't agree with me. My opinion is, and you ain't willing to allow the other person their opinion, okay? Or, and that's not everybody, because that's but that's just one example. Another example is what we said a second ago. Okay, I say something and I have a different meaning in my head to what I mean by what I say, as you have a
Mhm.
different meaning than I do. Okay, but you don't know that I have a different meaning than you. And so
Yeah.
when I say it, you come up here and well, yeah, blah, 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 and you go off with your meaning thinking you're trying to teach me something or show me something. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you actually really never knew what I was thinking when I said that word. You made an
Right.
assumption that you knew,
Yeah.
okay, but you actually didn't know. And this is where a lot of misunderstandings come in. So I guess my encouragement would be you need to really ask somebody what they mean by what they say.
Yeah, definitely. Like, don't settle for a label or a simple word. Try to get them to elaborate before you come to a disagreement. Ask them for their opinion and to use different words to describe what they mean more sort of in depth. Don't just believe that they have the same meaning as you and they've had the same life as you, because in a lot of cases, obviously, people have different meanings for different words based on what they've seen in their lives and what they've had. So, no two people will be the same in that matter, right?
That's exactly it. I mean, right there across the board, that's exactly it. Because even Steve's talked about this. We have different regions, we have different cultures, we have okay. Even though the schooling system and like it just okay, just stay in the U.S. for a moment, okay. We
Uh-huh.
have we have a ton of social engineering, but if you come up and say, "Well, no, that's not social engineered," when it is, you look like a fool, okay? If you don't want to go around that because you want to believe this is just nature, okay, it's just human nature, okay? I mean, we're supposed to act the way we're asking, okay? Because I mean, if
Mhm.
we're a badass and we can beat somebody up, then that gives us a
Yeah.
reputation because we can beat somebody up, and so the girl's gonna feel more protected. Really? How do you know that? Maybe she'll feel more threatened.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Like, this kind of Machiavellian society and Machiavellian, just so, because we're talking about labels and stuff, it's sort of like survival of the fittest, that type of stuff, eugenics, like, beating down others, the law of the jungle, that type of philosophy. That's sort of how society operates nowadays, based on what the elites in power have decided to create the society to enable. They've made everything into a competition, as you say. So since they've made everything into a competition, everything has become a competition. You know, you are going to see other people as in your way, and you will naturally sort of gravitate towards dominating them because you grew up in that environment. But that's not necessarily a human instinct, but that is more reflective of our current society or
Right.
social engineering.
They'll want to say a lot of people will try to argue with you and tell you that that's just on our animal nature, okay? Because we
Hmm.
all have some animalism and it's our instinct. It's in us. It's just our nature. It's blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, I've always disagreed with that. The
Yeah,
majority of everything comes from what's been social engineered, programmed into us. I mean,
yeah.
from words, okay, to meanings of words, to
Hmm.
everything. I mean, literally everything you ever use has been man created. Wording and everything. Categories, where's your spelling come from? Where's your wording come from? Other people.
Right.
Where did TFL
Uh-huh.
come from? Okay, the name itself, just the name. Oh, that's right. I created that name because it fits the situation.
Yeah, like whenever you look at countries like Japan, or you can even go to like Chinese monasteries, with these full of these Buddhist monks, they operate very differently. Like for instance, Japan has a very low crime rate because the Japanese are taught from an early age through their school system and their media and their government that they're all sort of as one people, and they should stick together. So they'll have lower crime rates and stuff. And even countries like Sweden used to have a much lower crime rate whenever it was less westernized, or the culture. They had like their own Swedish culture. It was a lot more about sticking together and stuff. But the crime rates rocketed in Sweden recently because it's become more westernized. And Japan crime rate is still very low, but that's a lot of that's to do with basically the values that the Japanese are taught. They're taught to stick together and act as one. That's how they're socially engineered. Whereas in the West, you're sort of taught to be an individualist, to dominate. Like the American dream's the whole idea about rising to the top and beating everybody else, isn't it?
Well, yeah, well, rising to the top means you've run over, shit on, stepped on, destroyed other human lives off for your own selfish gain. What else do we do?
Huh.
Oh, everything's a competition, right? Yeah. And what's the
Yeah.
competition? Yeah, well, we got to beat the other people. We got to beat and to rise to the top. And this list just goes on and on and on, but it's all words that's been given to us. Categories, labeling, and then people fall into it, man. If you call somebody a loser, oh yeah, yeah, you hear women calling men losers all the time. And then of course there's the male hating. Okay, this one here, I was thinking about this earlier, you know, and this goes so well together, and it's something that's happened to me a couple of times in my life that really just fires me up. Okay, the
Mhm.
first time was, well, this happened twice when my son was still a kid. Okay, a
Yeah.
female that I just happened to know makes the statement to me, "Where's his mother? How come you have custody of him?" And she said it in a snottish way. Okay,
Right.
Then, oh, a year or so later, it happened again. This time it came from a family member or a cousin. Okay, actually a
Okay.
first cousin. Okay, and she says to me, Bill, and I said, what? How come you got Jason? That's not right.
Right.
You shouldn't have Jason. How come you have him? Okay. And I never answered her, but it's here. Let me get you down to this. This is social engineering. See, the reason these two women had attitude with me, one being my own family member, okay,
Yeah.
over me having the custody of my son was because through social engineering society, their perception is that men cannot take care of kids or raise kids.
Yeah. You're
Okay.
absolutely right.
And though this woman, these two girls, women, they had attitude at me because I had my son, that he wasn't with
Hmm.
the female. Okay. And you hear all the time because it's been promoted through society that, see, not only does it offend me that I'm going to be treated this way because I have my son, they treat me like I'm unable to raise my own child because I'm a man. That means I'm unable to do it, okay? Which is not
Hmm.
true whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay, but this
It's,
is a perception that's been fed to us. So we fall down the rabbit hole believing this hocus pocus, okay? Which is
yeah.
exactly what it is. And I said this earlier to my brother. I says, I would have to say that probably 80% of the female population are man haters. I'm going to repeat it again. 80% of the female population are man haters. And out of that 80%, probably 75% don't even know they are.
Yeah, it could be that high because basically from watching all these TV shows in which, and reading all of these books in which, you're told that, basically the mother's the nurturer and stuff, and you're seeing all these violent men and these caring mothers for the children, you do, after watching that, you do believe that's reality just based on what you saw on the TV screen, no different like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck robbing the bank. So that becomes a reality.
That's exactly it. See, this is the reason I decided we were going to switch it up a little bit when we were talking about this yesterday. This seemed like a topic that needed to be talked about because we had Steve come in here, and Steve, I love the hell out of Steve. I think he's a great man. Okay, I really do. Okay, but we had Steve show up in the show this last Saturday, and he seemed a little hyped out when he came at me and said what he had to say because he was agreeing with SBO and not really agreeing with me, which is fine. But even out of everything Steve said, he actually assumed for me that he knew how I would feel about topics. He's done this more than once. That he was actually wrong about because they never asked me how I felt about him. Because that wording. There we go with the labels again. The wording, right? Okay, which technically isn't his fault. The problem is nobody wants to think about. We have many meanings for words, and some people say something meaning something else with what they're saying, and another person takes what they said meaning totally something different than the person saying it, and it causes misunderstandings and conflict. Okay? And so Warren was a little fired up, and Steve was a little fired up, and it was all over the word Chad. Okay? So this is where I'm trying to come from, that people need to understand that we have to back up just a hair, and we have to start asking each other, okay, so Bill, what did you mean by what you're saying? What is your definition of that? Say the word they said. What do you mean by that? What is your definition of that? So you can have an understanding what they're thinking,
Hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the understanding what they're thinking and you just take what you perceive as to be a meaning to a word that they perceive to be a different meaning, you're going to have this misunderstanding and conflict that didn't even have to happen because you missed out on saying, what do you mean by that word? Or what you
Yeah.
said.
And sometimes it can be deliberately done as well. Like people like to try and misconstruct others' arguments. Like you've had that happen with people who criticize your videos. They'll
Oh yes.
basically change your words around just so they can be the right one. They love being right for their ego. They love to be the dominant one, the right one. And they'll maybe not even care about what you have to say so much as they just want to try and find a loophole to deconstruct what you're saying in your argument, to tear you down and build themselves up. And it's about shitting all over you and getting better than you, being better than you. So you can have that as well.
Yeah. You know. But see, I noticed that. I even noticed that with Steve in the comment sections. I noticed one person says, "What is Steve trolling the show?" No, Steve Hoke is not a troll, and no, he was not trolling the show. See, the other thing is emotions. Okay, that's another socially engineered construct because we have men are logical. Women use logic, or not women, men use logic and women use emotion. And this has been
Yeah.
pushed through the dating scene for years. And so people want to think, well, men are logical and they don't use emotion to think on, and women are emotional because they're different than a man. And see, they're different than a man because they have emotions that they run on, where men run on logic. And I look around me and I see, here's the guy running on emotion, here's the guy running on emotion, here's the guy running on emotion. Oh,
Yeah.
hold on, this woman's using logic. Well, hold on. That can't be right. Yes, it can be. You know what you all missed? Both men and women alike are human beings, and both men and women alike have emotions, feelings, wants, and needs. But we've decided, some other human beings decided for us, that
Mhm.
we're supposed to think with that brain in the jar.
Yeah, like you're absolutely right. If you actually think about this, thoughts and emotions are connected. If you have a bad emotion, it can influence your thinking, and if you think, you have positive thoughts, it can influence your emotional state. So, what is logic? Logic is a thought process. It's thinking in a logical way to create an argument out of thoughts that come before it or statements that come before it. So, these logic and thoughts are fairly connected. They really are. There's basically two sides of the same coin, and you have both. It's part of being human.
They are. That's
Yeah.
one of my biggest pet peeves is, yes, I understand there's a difference between a man and a woman. Oh, duh, right? But at the
Right.
same token, the people that we like to listen to has created a whole list of differences between the genders that's complete bullshit.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
they've
if you have
shoved
thoughts,
them down people's throats, and then they're up there arguing with you and saying all these differences between the man and woman that don't even exist.
yeah, you're right. Like if you have thoughts, you have emotions. There's no getting around that. If you have a cognitive process, you will have emotions. But maybe, I think basically maybe men are more careful in today's society, so they'll know not to go for instant gratification because they can get more punished for their mistakes. So if you're more careful, you could be seen to be more logical because maybe you're a bit more cautious. You're thinking before you act because you're walking on eggshells. But that's just because you've been punished a lot more in the past, so you are going to be more careful, and that's socially engineered.
Yes. See, this is what I mean. I mean, social engineering, NWO, has a lot to do with this, okay? And it doesn't matter what people tell me because I don't care what they tell me. I know from my research and I know from living my life and being here as long as I have, okay, and living my life and having experiences in my life. And I know from what I've my research in my life what the correct truth is, and what I want is what's right for everybody. I've never wanted anything that's wrong on anybody because that's
Yeah.
not who I am. Okay, of course I'm told because I have compassion for other people I don't even know that makes me weak. And I hate to differ with you, but actually it don't make me weak. In this today's society, actually it makes me stronger than the majority of all of you.
It
Because if
does.
you do not have what I have, you are actually the one that's weak, not me.
You're right, because whenever you have care, it can, it can make you feel sad and stuff, like if somebody you care about dies or whatever, you're going to care deeply for them, whereas other people who don't care can move on next week and be positive about it. They can be like, oh, it happens, ha 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 ha, natural stuff. Whereas if you care, you are going to get more depressed about something, and that can be a lot more stronger dealing with the negative mood sets that come about because of care.
Yeah. Well, it's because of lack of care that we have the majority of all of our problems, anyhow. And then, of course, you got to couple in with the lack of care. You got to couple in everything they've gave us, all the tools they've used to divide us. Okay, because they've used all kinds of tools to divide us, and they just keep on going. I had a person who left a comment. Okay, and I'm not going to slam them for their comment, but I'm going to say it came out of social engineering. And people are going to say, well, what do you mean by it came out of social engineering? Okay, because it actually did come out of social engineering. Because I had a comment from a person, okay, Joe, whatever his name is, and it was on the live stream, okay? Even if you are one of these men, that still won't be, okay, they still won't be your friend. He's talking about girls, women here, right? They still won't be your friend, okay? Girl has 1,000 friends on social media, and why the hell would she want another useless friend? Okay, now do you see the construct there is simple? He used the worst example that could ever be used. Because he's
Right.
going to say she has 1,000 plus friends on her social media, right?
Fucking social media. Yeah, right.
Right, okay. And that's one of the biggest jokes I've ever heard of in my life, because the reality is oh, so she has 1,000 plus friends, does she? What do you want to bet you don't? How about she probably don't know 99% of the people on her social media at all?
You only have 356 days in a year, so if you got 1,000 friends, good luck keeping in contact with all of them.
Well, there's that. You could have 100 friends, 500 friends. Okay, but on one hand, after you get through with them 500 friends, you find out that you only had 2 friends or 3 friends, because the rest were all fake, phony, baloney. They were acquaintances, and some ain't even acquaintances. They just showed up in your friends list, and oh, look, I got a new friend. Somebody I don't even know, that I'll never talk to, I'll never hang with, I won't know the first thing about, but they're my friend.
Yeah, like in a social media case, a lot of people just get bored, and then they'll look up your name for 5 minutes to see what you're doing, and they'll try to compare their life to yours, compete with you, and see.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. I like that. Don't you like that when they try to compare their life to you because it's a competition?
Yeah, that's the mindset.
Yep, and then they got to one up you. They got to be better than you at it, right?
Yeah, I reckon most people who are your friends, a lot of them on these social networking sites don't even like you. They might view you as competition. They might even dislike you, a lot of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's actually pathetic, because the reality is look at the way we treat each other. Oh, that's just perfectly normal. Nobody minds it. Then you do onto them what they done onto you, and they're all pissed off. Hold on, what are you pissed off about? Nobody minds it. It's normal, right?
Yeah, the perfect example is the divorce rate being so high. I mean, that's supposed to be your best friend who you marry. So if the divorce rate's so high, obviously your best friend wasn't worth shit to you. If you're just going to throw them away like trash, so you can't care for anybody.
No, people don't know how to communicate, and people don't know what a relationship is. All I know. They get mad at me when I say they don't know what a relationship is, and I have to tell them, well, prove it to me. Okay, as simple as that. You say you know what you're doing in a relationship, or you know what you're doing in the dating scene, then I want you to prove that to me by telling me what a date is. I want you to break it down on how you get a relationship and the whole 9 yards. I want to tell me, you tell me how you go about it. And most of them are going to say, well, you got to have game, and you get out there, you're full of confidence, and they're going to give you the normal spill that you hear from anybody. You're going to say,
Right.
next. What do you mean next? You don't know what you're talking about. Next. Still waiting.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny. Some girl in work was, asking me like she was unpopular or whatever in comparison to these other girls. She was like saying, she didn't get why, and she was asking, did I know? And I just said to her, "Oh, just be more confident," even though I knew it was complete bullshit. But I didn't want to get into a fucking in-depth topic, just for fear of being outed as strange or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Here, I'm telling you.
We
Reconnected
were
says,
on a
oh, the
roll.
OBS studio cut out for a moment and then came back up.
We were on a roll there, Bill. We were on a roll.
Okay, so I don't know if people lost part of the show. They'll have to let me know. I haven't had that happen in a while. The OBS studio cut out, then came back up again. Do we got high traffic or something? Or somebody just don't like our topic? I mean, Well, that wouldn't surprise me, would it, huh?
No. No, that wouldn't surprise me ever.
I don't know why I'd be surprised that somebody may not like what I'm talking about. This is another big freaking flat situation that you fucking. Here's how insane it goes. You can have friends that you've known your whole life, right?
Yeah.
And they'll come up and they'll see a video you did on the dating scene, right?
Uh-huh.
And now they won't talk to you ever again.
Yeah.
Now they know you your whole life. Maybe you've been on the planet as long as I have. Maybe they've known you, went to school with you, grew up with you, the whole 9 yards. And you're always
Yeah.
really good friends. But because they listened to a dating scene topic video and they haven't looked into jack squat, okay, and maybe they've been with the same girl for a long time and been busy playing pool and playing darts and drinking and whatever else they go do, bowling and having, they're into their activities, they're into their own life, right?
Yeah.
They heard that video where you spoke truth that they didn't know was going on because they haven't looked into anything, so they made an assumption and they hate your guts and they don't even ask you. They were supposedly your friend, right? So
Uh-huh.
let me ask you something. If you're my friend and I say something and you don't agree, or sort of upset you don't agree with what I'm thinking, if you was my
Uh-huh.
friend, would you come and ask me what I mean by what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would, yeah. Unless like you were personally attacking me, like, mentioning my name and saying this guy's a piece of shit, I hate him behind my back, then I would not do it. Like if you were like talking shit about me personally behind my back. But yeah, in terms of a dating scene or something general like that, yeah, I'd ask you what you meant and by what you were saying.
But nowadays, most people won't do that, will they?
No, no, you're right. Like most people just think they're right. They judge by their life experience only. They think, their experience is everyone's experience. And they think if you're saying this type of stuff, it's because you're a bad person, you're ungrateful for your circumstance and they'll attack you on sight.
There you go. That's exactly what I was looking for because that's exactly how it is. So when you think about just that within itself, do you see how complicated it can be when you're speaking about TFL? If you go out in the real world, you're out here talking about TFL with people go quiet, don't they?
Yeah.
They really don't want to talk to you about the subject you're talking about. They go quiet and they go, and they walk away and they're blah, 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 yeah. Because they got an
Uh-huh.
attitude over it, right?
Right.
So didn't that also help the problem get worse?
Yeah, it did. It perpetuated it.
Yes. See, I could go on for hours with this stuff because this is the reality. I just try to get it out here a little bit more clear so people understand. You know, I like Steve. I like Warren. Okay.
Mm.
I know that they got a little heated. I know that Warren felt a little heated over, the Chad thing. I know that Steve misunderstood me. I didn't agree totally over, but it was a misunderstanding more than anything else because, and I think we're all guilty in one way or another of doing this thing, doing this at one time or another, okay? I'm
Yeah.
not even excusing myself from that, just so that you know how fair I'm going to be about this, okay? But the reality is when I think about it, I'm thinking, yeah, we need to slow down, all of us, and start asking each other, what do you mean by what you're saying? You know, if
Yeah.
you say black pill, if I say, well, I'm promoting and I'm going with what black pill philosophy is, okay? Or if Jay,
Yeah.
let's say my guest here saying he's going with black pill philosophy, shouldn't I ask him before I attack him and say, so what do you mean by black pill philosophy? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a good idea because, and then you'll catch me out if I don't even know what I'm talking about myself, and I'm just using something I heard on the internet that wasn't even my own idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you ask somebody on the spot, well, what do you mean? You know, they're going to stumble a bit. I think because they're not even really sure what it means themselves. They're just using some fancy term that sounds smart and intellectual.
Unfortunately, we see that quite often. People come up here and they try to act all smart and intelligent, and they wind up making themselves into idiots because you could just talk like a normal human being. You got to use long, drawn out, sophisticated words to make yourself sound smart. You just sound too fake to me.
Yeah, yes, you're right. Like it's just fucking people trying to get an ego kick out of it, isn't it?
It
Largely.
is. Well, that's a lot of what we have. We have egomaniacs running all over the place. And they're all in this competition to my ego's better than your ego, and I'm better than you, and I know I'm smarter than everybody, and I'm better than you. And I said, no, you're not.
No, no, you're not. You just read some fancy word in a fucking book, and now you think you're hot shit. I, I must say, Bill, like personally, out of everyone I've seen on the internet, I don't think many people could hold up a hand to you. The ideas you've come up with yourself, I can tell you can think for yourself just from even our talks, not on the live stream. You have some great, inventive ideas and stuff that you come up with, and honestly, most people in this chat can't come close to you in terms of intellect.
Oh, well, no, they're a mile ahead of me, right? Oh.
Yeah, because they read some fucking fancy scientific article or some shit. So this is how it is. Because the scientists said it. The scientists are richer than you. They're getting money. They're endorsed by the government. They're successful. Oh, they know what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah, if a scientist said it, you could just count on that. That has to be accurate because no scientist would lie to me.
Yeah, like it's like the priest is saying, "Oh, the Bible said this, so it must be fucking true. It
There
must be
you
true
go.
that all
Yep.
these stillborns are going to hell," as they say in the Bible,
Oh, yeah, well,
because they're born of
that's
sin.
just it. I mean, the Christian belief is you're born in sin, right? So the
Yeah,
baby was born yesterday and it died today from underdevelopment. So it didn't even live 24 hours and it died. What is going to happen to the baby now died? Oh, it's burning in hell for eternity.
that makes a lot of sense. But then it makes as much sense as the scientific articles do half the time.
Right. But don't worry. Don't worry. God loves you. That's why he's burning the baby in hell for eternity because he loves you.
Yeah, or even with the whole veganism thing, you got these scientific articles saying, "Oh, veganism's a healthy diet," and then you can go read other scientific articles endorsed by the meat industry saying, "Well, veganism's bad for you, eating meat's healthy." So
Well, the meat
scientific articles
industry,
are lying.
I would break that down to say the meat industry is going to promote that the meat's good for you so they can continue to commit genocide on animals. Okay?
Mhm.
And the other side, the vegetarian side is going to tell you the veggies are good for you. And I would be more liable to agree with the veggie people, but I have a
Yeah,
problem. I don't have that land that the elite have that's not having chemtrails sprayed on it. And I don't
yeah,
have the real seeds to grow the food that actually has the vitamins and minerals you need in it.
exactly. There's nothing more telling that a food's unnatural than if it's seedless. Seedless should not exist in a fruit. That tells you it's been fucked with.
Yes. And people don't want to think about that. I can remember when I was a kid working in the garden. When it came time to pick the stuff out of the garden for the season, we would pick the handful of tomatoes that we'd take in the house. But when we cut them open, they were just loaded with seeds. Now, if you
Yeah,
go to the store and pick one tomato from each frickin' vendor with each name on it and slice that slice that thing down the middle, you're gonna find this one's got a few seeds in it. This one has a few too, and this one here ain't got no seeds in it.
Hmm.
Hint,
Right.
hint, no seeds. Hint, hint.
Yeah, like if and then there's no insects in it either. So I mean, if it's not safe for the insects or the bugs, if the bugs are dying from coming near the stuff, what makes you think it's going to be good coming in the air system? Because the
Yeah.
bugs are alive too.
Well, yeah, that's correct. That's sort of like, okay, the bugs ain't gonna go near it. They're not gonna eat it, so that should be a red flag to say there's something wrong with it, right?
Right.
But people don't want to have a red flag with that one, okay? So they'll say, well, that's just because of the pesticides. Oh, but you're not eating any of the pesticide that was sprayed on there? What do you want to bet you are?
Yeah, they think they can wash it off or something, but they don't realize that the pesticides get deep into the fruit. They'll be inside the cells, and they'll get won't be able to wash it off. It's deep inside the thing.
Well,
The
that
whole
and the
thing.
fact that if you really watch, they spray the crops before the vegetables are even growing. Well, we're protected from the bugs. Well, that chemical gets into the root of the plant. Now you develop the vegetable or fruit with that chemical in that fruit because it's in the root of the plant.
Uh-huh.
Then you take it
But
home and you eat that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe Roundup sounds pretty good to people.
and then we wonder why so many people's health is bad today. And why we've got all these fucking diseases and mental illnesses and stuff. A lot of it could be to do with this shitty diet and these, metals that they're putting into it
It
that are
is.
so toxic.
It is. That's where cancer, that's where the majority of all your cancer comes from. This is, between it and Big Pharma.
Yeah.
But people don't want to go that far to look into Big Pharma, to look into what's really going on. They just want to believe whatever fluff and stuff they're told, you know. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have enough problems in this world, and I try to get the manosphere to come together, and that's my whole goal is to try to bring the manosphere more together, get people to
Yeah.
see that we're not each other's enemy. We're all men experiencing the same problems, but well, we couldn't do that, man. We got our different categories. Well, I'm forever alone. Well, I'm a
Mm.
MGTOW, man. I'm going my own way. And I'm gonna pump and dump when I'm going my own way. Yeah. Okay. And I'm like, really? How are you going your own way if you're chasing through the hoops to get into a girl's pants? Going your own way, you're doing the same thing you've always done.
Yeah, like MGTOW is one of them labels where there's so many different versions of it and shit that it's really even hard to like categorize the MGTOW because they're all so different. The label has lost all of its meaning, as you say. It's been completely infiltrated and destroyed, and nobody knows what a MGTOW is anymore because they're so different, so much diversity within it.
Oh, that's exactly it. That's because it was infiltrated and completely destroyed because they wanted to destroy it so that men really wouldn't walk away from women. And it worked. They got you right where they want you. Y'all bent over. I'm sorry, I'm
It's
not going to
yeah,
give you any lube. You can have dry entry.
it's like like we're getting back to the chads and the labels. MGTOW has so many different meanings to so many different people that you could get a guy on here saying he's a MGTOW, and then you have to ask him, well, what do you mean by being a MGTOW? Because being a MGTOW in itself isn't really telling you anything about them.
No, being a MGTOW itself doesn't tell you anything about them. You don't know these people. That's the problem. How many people are really coming up here and being honest? Or how many people's motivations is for money? What's their real alternative for being here online? What is their real motive? And most people's motive is selfishness or games, okay, or trying to get ahead of somebody else or monetary gain. There's always an agenda for most people behind it, and I don't have no agenda behind why I come up here outside of trying to help other people. Oh, well, that makes
No,
me weak because I'm always trying to help men, especially men. I don't know how you would want to help men when men are the most hated. Why would you even want to help yourself? Because you know you're the most hated. You're hated just because you're a man. You know that. That's supposed to be normal behavior, right?
it's like whenever that man from the Rothschilds, he contacted you and was trying to like offer you a job if you'd make videos, if you'd tone down on make his kind of videos and stop talking about his family, and basically say what he wanted you to say, but you refused it.
Basically, what he said was that I could go ahead and talk about the stuff I'm talking about as long as I leave his good family name out of my videos.
Yeah,
I took the challenge and went ahead and brought up his good family name.
and from that point on, he realized there was really no point in talking to you anymore because you couldn't be bought out. You weren't listening to him.
Right, that's it. That's exactly it. I'm not gonna, I won't sell myself out. And so many people online have sold themselves out. They will
Yeah,
sell themselves out for that damn monetary, for that money.
yeah. If you think like the majority of the people who that guy's probably contacted have taken his offer and agreed to him, and they've kept their channels, they've grown big, they've gotten a good income out of it, and they've got a lot of money out of it. But you turned all that down for your
Yes.
principles.
Well,
That says a lot about you.
as Steve said something I think is pretty damn accurate when he talked about the geeks and the nerds back in the day used to be hacking into government stuff and against the government. But not anymore. Now the geeks and nerds are working for Google, making $250,000 a year.
Mm, yeah, you're right. The majority of them are like, I'm sure there's a couple, right? But the vast majority.
Yeah. See, so it's not that Steve don't know what Steve's talking about. The majority of what Steve says, I agree with. And because I don't agree with one or two things he says, or I don't totally agree, it means
Mhm.
nothing to me because that just makes me me and makes Steve Steve.
I know,
And
yeah,
that's the way it's supposed to be.
right. It wasn't like Steve lived in your house or was with you your entire life. He was living
He
away
was
from you
living
for
his
most of it.
life. That's right. And I was living my life while he was living his life, seeing that is exactly the way it's supposed to be. So why would I
Yeah.
want to fight Steve because we disagree on something? No. What I
No,
want people to do is to be able to say their feelings, but I don't want games. And
yeah.
as much as I hate to say it, I still think a certain person who's calling into our show is not seriously TFL.
Hmm. Definitely with you and Steve, like, growing up in different environments, I think, you have you basically have different meanings for different words from what you've been seeing around you. You've probably used words differently in different contexts. And so, as you were saying, with the whole labeling thing, you have a completely different idea of what something means based on what you've experienced, what you've seen in comparison to what he saw and he's experienced. So,
I do,
more
yes.
words.
And unfortunately, it's these words that's been created by other people that throw
Hmm.
people off because you perceive that word to mean this, 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 and somebody else perceives it to mean something else. And you don't think
Yeah.
that they could perceive that word to mean something else, and you want to argue and fight over it. A word, when you should never be arguing, fighting over words, you should just be asking each other, what is your meaning of that word? What are you
Yeah.
meaning by that word?
Communication has definitely been broken down by judgments people make. And what's the word that begins with A? I'm not sure. I can't even remember it, but judgments or something, assumptions, that people make right off the bat. Just that's how people are basically taught to think in the movies and stuff. You're taught
Well,
to
but
make all these snap judgments.
90% of assumptions are wrong. People don't
Yeah,
want to realize that, but that's the truth. 90% of assumptions are wrong. Not correct, wrong. Because you get
yeah,
lucky in making assumptions right a few times here or there. That's all it ever was a few times because the majority of the time you'll be wrong because the majority of the time it's just what he just said. You assumption comes from your life experiences in your environment and what you would do around who you're around. You're completely forgetting about individuality that not everybody feels the same way you do about something. Not everybody likes the same show. Not everybody likes the same food. It's called individuality, and individuality includes the fact that where my companion over here on the show today, he's living on the other side of the globe from me. He's in a different environment than I'm in.
yeah,
Okay, so he might get a word that's said to him that means totally something different over there, and I might get the same word thrown at me here and means totally something different over here. But because we
yeah,
learn how to communicate with each other, we ask each other the questions and we really get to know each other and we know what each other thinks and feels about these things that we're talking about because we're asking each other, and I think that's one of the big problems we have on the live stream that
Mhm.
cause heated conversations because either somebody, like Timothy would use fancy words, okay, and wouldn't come right to the point, okay, or you
Mhm.
have where Timothy fired up Warren, okay, but
Mhm.
then you had Espio in there at the same time firing him up, okay. But I think a
Yeah.
lot of the firing up is because, see, Timothy's living over there in St. Louis. Warren's living
Yeah.
up here in Carolina, okay? And
Mhm.
they're in two different cultures, even though they're both in the same country, and neither one's lived each other's life.
Yeah, like Warren comes from a more rural environment, I think, and Timothy was maybe more in the city or like in a small town, he's in a more populated area.
Right. And Timothy's from a whole nother race. See, he's a
Yeah.
black man, so he's living that experience as a black man in his life, and the stuff he's experienced won't necessarily match up to Warren or me, right?
Yeah,
And even if we were the same color, our experiences could be totally different.
you're right. Like I would imagine being a minority could be particularly tough because you're looking around and you're always feeling like you're being the one singled out. You're the one who looks different. It must be tough in a lot of ways to deal with that.
Yeah. And so I guess the main message that I wanted to get out is for people to understand that we need to really back off and start asking each other the simple question: what do you mean by that? Rather than make an assumption you know what they mean by it when you may not know what they mean by it, but because you assumed it, no, because you assumed it, there's a good chance your foot would be hanging out of its mouth.
Yeah, with the whole assumptions thing, it's really a way of dumbing people down. People are very dumbed down these days. Like they would rather not think and just allow this all hive mind in a jar to think for them using their assumptions and their labels based on what they've seen in the movies. And in a lot of ways, basically people don't like to use their heads in communication, so they'll just use the simpler route, which is their own head and their own imagination. Not really their own head, but they'll just use their recollection of what movies they've seen and then make up what you've said for you because it's too much effort to try and get what you're meaning out from
Or
yourself.
pretty soon they'll be using AI to think for them because they'll have a chip in their head because they went along.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I remember Jeffrey Epstein said something like the humans of the future would be genetically engineered and be fitted with artificial intelligence. And that was probably some truth he was talking.
That was truth. But people haven't seen it yet, so they don't want to believe it, right? I mean, they got
Yes,
to have the proverbial gun to the back of their head before they'll believe it, right?
right. Sorry to interrupt, Bill, but this phone's on 1% battery, so I might swap over here because
Yeah.
it's going to cut me out. I'll be 2 minutes or a minute. I'll call you as soon as I can. Oh, it's
Yep. So, anyhow, I don't know that I'm going to hold the live stream very long today because today's live stream was an offbeat, but it was basically to talk about what I think I've talked about already. Okay. So, his phone's about to cut off. He's got an appointment another hour from now, anyhow. And I didn't want to spend the whole day up here. This is not Saturday night, but do remember that I will not be here this coming Saturday. But the following week, that's Saturday, TFL, Saturday Night Live will be back up and running. But today was basically just before Turkey Day. I wanted to get this out. And and I don't disclude myself from any of this. I think that we all need to steal, even myself, need to work on our own selves to improve our communication skills with one another so that we can avoid mishaps and, high tension and anger at each other. I don't want to see people throwing each other under the bus anymore. And that's really where I come from with that. But I think I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream for now, guys. And then I will be back here a different time. If you don't hear from me until after Thanksgiving, it'll probably be a live stream that's unannounced or something. And other than that, I will see you on Saturday, not this coming Saturday, a week from this Saturday. Back up with the TFL Saturday Night Live thing. And I want to thank, I do want to thank Henry for coming in here. and being part of the show today. But I'm at right about an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And with that, guys, you all have a good one.